We've got downtown. We've got traffic. We've got palm trees. That can only mean one thing. We are in LA, baby. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing in Los Angeles because this guy got invited to play a 25-50 game at Live at the Bike, and I decided to jump in the car, drive over here with him. I will only be playing 2-5, but we are gonna battle it out and see who can win more big blinds today. Let's go play poker.
After my last session at Live at the Bike, I am looking for redemption. The blinds are 25-50 and I'm buying in for 10K.
So I cannot film inside the poker room, but I can run up here every once in a while and give you guys an update on how the hands are going, how the session's going, and I can film inside of the Live at the Bike streaming area to keep an eye on Jesse.
All right, we're back. After losing a couple thousand in some early pots, we play a hand where there's a raise and 2 calls, and I look down in the big blind at pocket 4s. This is a super easy call. We're gonna get in there, and we're gonna play a game on the flop that I like to call no set, no bet. And the flop comes 6-6-4, 2 hearts. Forget a set, how about a full house? It checks around to Sammy the Bull, and he bets just under half pot. It then folds to me, and I have a decision to make. I think with another player behind, my standard would be to just call here and trap the original raiser so he can come along with something that's drawing dead like ace-king, or a hand like jacks doesn't have to get away from it with a bet and a raise in front of them. But something that I've noticed about Sammy so far is that if he likes his hand, he tends to put more money in the pot, especially on the first street that he bets. So that, coupled with the fact that the original raiser Jew doesn't even look that interested anymore, makes me decide to raise here. We kick it up to 850, and Sammy very quickly calls. The turn is an offsuit 5, which is a pretty good card for me because a lot of my bluffs are going to hit that turn. In the moment, I'm not sure if I want to bet something like 800 or 1600. I think both have merits. 800 definitely keeps in different flush draws that Sammy could have, and those are hands that I want to stay in. I want him to make a flush and pay me off on the river. On the other hand, 1600 sets up a really nice all-in size on the river that's not too big. And there are other hands that 1600 might be a better size against. Like if he has something like pocket 9s, that might be the maximum that he calls, and we want to put in as much as possible on the turn before a bad card comes on the river and he gets away. I end up betting 1600, but I'm really interested what you guys think the right size would be here. If you have a preference, take a second, pause the video, and write it in the comments. Because of all the decisions in this game, this is definitely one of the ones that I was the least sure about. So I decided to go 1600, and maybe that was a little greedy. Sammy makes a really nice laydown with king 10 of hearts. I am left thinking, maybe if I was a little less greedy, there would have been a way to get some more money in this pot.
All right, I have the craziest people at my table. When I say they're playing any 2 cards, I mean it. They're playing any 2 cards. Every hand dealt to them, they're getting in there. When people 3-bet, they're calling. Usually it's exciting in Vegas if you're playing in a cash game and you get one person that's like that. We've got 2. The biggest hand that I've played so far in this session, the guy that hasn't been playing a bunch of hands opens cutoff. The button, who's in there with everything, calls. The small blind calls, and I have been straddling, so they only made it 20. I'm in the straddle with ace-king offsuit, and so I raise it up. When you're playing with maniacs like this, you're just gonna play a tighter range, so you might as well go bigger with that tighter range and let them make a mistake by putting way too much money in there with bad hands. So anyway, I make it $140 and just the button calls. The flop is 844 rainbow. I c-bet for $110, about a third of the pot. He doesn't take too long, he just quickly calls. The turn is a 9, bringing a club draw. So now I'm gonna slow down with a check. He doesn't think too long, he checks back pretty quickly. The river is another 4, bringing a third club. Check it over to him, and he goes into the tank for over a minute, and the longer he thinks, the more likely I think it is that it's a bluff. So I'm ready to call him off, like just ace high, but it's just, he's in there with any 2 cards. But eventually he lands on a check, and when I show my hand, he's not excited about it, throws his hand into the muck and is kicking himself, and we take down a nice 3-bet pot.
In this hand, there's a straddle on, and Yen raises to 300 from early position. I look down in the cutoff at pocket aces, number 1, and make it 900. It folds to Jew in the small blind, and he starts tanking. Now I'm just praying for the 4-bet. And he does not let us down, guys. He makes it 2,200. It folds back to me, and now I have a real decision to make. I kind of feel like if he had ace-king, maybe he would make it a little bit bigger, kind of a committing size that doesn't let me call with too many hands. So I feel like he's more likely to have something like queens, kings, aces, or a bluff. And I think against those types of hands, I just want to call. If he has a bluff, I just want to let him continue bluffing. And if he has queens, kings, or aces, I'm going to get all that money after the flop unless a really bad card comes like an ace. And when I have 2 aces in my hand, that's very unlikely. But instead, the flop is ace, queen, 3. Patriots winning the Super Bowl, top set in a 4-bet pot at high stakes, world peace. So Jew bets 1,500, and there's nothing I can do here but call. It's much more likely that he has the bluffs than a strong hand at this point. The turn is the 10 of spades, which is actually a pretty nice card for me because now there's 2 flush draws, and if he has either one, he's going to feel compelled to continue here. Now, he bets 3,000, which is a bit of a weird size when I only have 6,700 to start the turn. And I could honestly see strong arguments to just call here, and if he does have a bluff, let him continue bluffing on the river. But something about the way this hand played out, his timing, the way he bet, I don't know exactly what it was, made me think that he wasn't folding. So I get it in, he snaps me off immediately, and I find out that he has ace queen. I don't know what I did in a past life to deserve a flop that amazing, but whatever it was really good. So with him drawing dead, we double up our stack and are now up $11,000 on the session. Great start.
All right, this one was great too. Another straddled pot. So we're basically playing 5-5-10. The guy who is in there with everything, he says he's down 20,000 in Baccarat, limps on the button. The small blind folds. I just peel my big blind with queen jack offsuit. I call, and then the straddler makes it $40. The button calls, and I'm not feeling great about this one. If I had queen 10 offsuit, for example, I would just muck it. King queen, I probably would have raised already. So queen jack is kind of borderline, but I'm playing borderline hands with all this action at this table. So I make the call 3 ways, $120 in the middle. It comes 10, 9, 8, 2 spades. So we flop the nuts, and unfortunately it checks around. 2 coordinated of board. I guess those guys are scared. The turn is a queen, offsuit queen. So now there's a 4-liner out there, and once the button player checks back on this flop, I don't think he's going to hit this turn a lot, but he's been willing to put in chips almost every single time when he's checked to multiple times in a row. There could be 5 people in the pot. He'll still be betting into us with his air. I check, straddler checks, and he does put out $65. Sticking with my plan, I make the call, and the straddler is out of there. The river is another 10 of clubs. I check it over to him one more time, and he throws out $150, so much bigger sizing. If he did have a 10, he would certainly be betting flop, so I don't think he has a 10, but I should definitely raise just in case next time. But as soon as I put my chips in to call, he snap mucked. So he just had nothing once again. And with that, I'm up $400 in 2 hands.
At this point in the game, we have decided to put on the auto straddle, so we're now effectively playing 25, 50, 100 every single hand, double the stakes. And I look down at queen jack of hearts in the cutoff and raise it up to 250. Jew's next to act on the button and re-raises to 800. It folds back to me, and I have a really easy call. On a side note, at this point in the game, Jew is pretty stuck, and he's been in and out of a lot of pots. I can't see what he's had so far because the delay is 2 hours in the future, but he's been 3-betting a lot, and I'm starting to think he's getting a little out of line with his ranges. So I do think that 4-betting might be an option here, but this is just such a good hand to call and take a flop that I don't really want to do anything else. And I'm glad that I do that because the flop is 6-4-2 all hearts. We flop a flush. I check, and Jew does something interesting. He checks back, which is not what I was expecting. So the turn is an offsuit 2, and I decide to bet right around the size of the pot. I'm not a big fan of this size. I think I should have either went small or way bigger than pot. Maybe something like 2 times the pot. I think really small is nice because it protects the other hands that want to go small like this, and it might induce a raise at a Jew. Really big is nice because it allows me to get all in on the river. But the size that I chose isn't really doing either of those things, and so for that reason, I'm not a big fan. So Jew starts tanking, and I'm obviously praying for a call, and then a call when I bet really big on the river as well. But what he does catches me by surprise. He puts out a raise to 5,500. I'm not really sure what hands want to check back the flop and then raise on the offsuit deuce when I've bet this big. I can't think of a single hand that loves doing this. I guess he could be trapping with some kind of nut flush, but it feels a lot more like he has aces or kings and was pot controlling on the flop, and now he's decided that he got a safe card. He wants to raise it up and maybe check back the river, control the size of the pot, and charge my one heart hands while he still can. That's definitely what it feels like in my gut, but I still don't know how to approach this. If I go all in, does he even call with aces or kings? Maybe if he has like aces with a heart, he calls, but I mean, I just look so strong if I go all in here. On the other hand, I kind of feel like if I just call, he's just going to check back the river with those sort of hands, and I'm not going to get value. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Do you guys think that I should A, just call, B, re-raise to 9,500, or C, go all in? Throw your answers in the comments because I've been thinking about this hand for 3 or 4 days, and I still don't know exactly what I should have done. I decided to call. I was a little afraid that if I went all in, he might find some hero folds with aces or kings. So the river is an offsuit jack, and I check and he quickly checks back. What I do find out later on is that he had 5-3 of diamonds. He flopped a straight. What? I feel like I got the absolute minimum in this hand, and I think he did a really good job navigating his way through the hand to lose as little as possible. I don't know. I think my thought process was decent in this hand, and I really can't expect him to just have 5-3 here. In our next hand, I look down at 7-9 of spades in the cutoff and raise it up to 250. Edgar, who has played very in line so far this session as far as I can tell, calls out of the straddle. And we see a flop of 8-5-3 rainbow, so I've got the nut gut shot here. Edgar checks and I bet on the bigger side. I think a big bet here makes his life really hard with a lot of the hands he could have, stuff like king, queen of spades, or maybe even hands like ace high. But Edgar is not going away that easily, and after a few seconds of deliberation, he puts in the call. The turn is a big blank for us, the deuce of diamonds. The turn could have improved some of the hands that Edgar calls with on the flop, like ace-4 or 6-4, but honestly, I expect him to check raise those hands a good amount of the time. I also think he's check raising a lot of his sets and 2 pairs on the flop, so I expect him to have a lot of 1-pair hands here or worse. So when Edgar checks to me, I fire out a big bet, a little over the size of the pot, and that puts him into the tank. He starts thinking and counting out his chips. He throws in a time bank chip. The clock comes on the wall. And I'm really starting to think like maybe he's going to fold. If he takes this long, he knows he looks a little weak, so he's probably going all in or folding, and I didn't expect him to go all in very often. But then, after deliberating for a little bit, he looks up and he says, all in. All in. So yeah, that's a little devastating when I'm sitting here with 9 high. And I obviously throw my hand in the muck as quickly as possible. I find out later on that he had shoved with 7-4 of diamonds, which I think is a really good shove, but not a shove that a lot of players find. So man, massive credit to him to find a very gutsy all-in in a pretty marginal spot. And yeah, I lost the pot and a bunch of money, but super cool hand.
All right, last one to finish out the night. And in this hand, the hijack, who's been drinking cognac, that's his nickname at the tables, cognac, he opens to $25. He's been limping and he's been raising to smaller amounts. So when he makes it $25, that's just, some extra information for the hand. Folds to me, I have aces in the small blind. So I'm going to be 3-betting. I make it 75 to go. He makes the call. And the two of us see the king, queen, 7, 2 diamond board. I have the ace of diamonds, so there's that. I'm obviously going to be c-betting. There's so many draws. So I put out a c-bet of $100. I size up to charge all of those draws, go a little bit bigger. He thinks for a little bit, maybe less than 30 seconds before calling. The turn is not a fun one. The turn is a queen of diamonds. It brings a flush. It brings another queen, which he could have. I decide to slow down with a check. He does the same. He checks it back. So I'm thinking we might win at showdown against a random king. The river, though, is the 9 of clubs. So not only does the flush get there on the turn, any jack 10 gets there on the river. So the main draws get there. And at this table, I'm very confident that if this guy bets the river for a decent size, he just has it against me, because I don't think he's going to be value betting a king when all these types of draws get there. Even though it's pretty obvious I don't have them, I think people just are happy to check back. Could be wrong about that. Not sure. Anyway, I check it over to him. He thinks for a little while, takes out 2 stacks of hundreds and slides them forward, betting 200 into the middle. I think for a while, kind of have a funeral for my aces, tell him that this was just the worst run out ever, and I end up folding. He doesn't show. He's like, I know you're not going to believe me either way, but good fold. So that's how I ended the night. Was up about 400 at one point, down to winning about 160 bucks.
In our final pot of the night, KGB opens to 300. I look down at ace king suited in the small blind and raise it up. I pick a smaller size here because KGB is actually pretty short, so I don't think I need to go the normal 4 or 4.5 times his raise size. So I make it 900. JC is next to act in the big blind and takes a while before cold calling. I do know that he's been extremely careful all day, so I think it's a pretty good hand. KGB grumpily makes the overcall, and we go to a flop. And it's a great one, King 10-8 rainbow. Both players are pretty short, and this is a fairly safe flop, so I'm definitely going to c-bet and be pretty happy to get it in with either player at this point. JC tanks for a little while again, and then flat calls. KGB folds, then the turn is a queen, which feels like an absolutely terrible card. A queen improves some of the hands that we were doing really well against, like king queen suited or pocket queens. It also leaves him with what I imagine are very close to 0 hands that we're beating that would actually put it in. Like, I don't think he's cold calling with king jack preflop, so I'm not really sure what hands we can get value from anymore. So I check and decide if he bets really big, I'm going to fold. If he bets really small, I'll take one off and make decisions on the river. But he does end up checking back, so that's at least a good start for us. The river is another queen, which is actually a really bad card as well, because the only hand that we were still beating probably was ace queen. So now I'm really unhappy with my hand. I check again, and at this point, if he puts much money in the pot, I'm probably just folding. JC ends up making an extremely careful check back on the river with pocket 10s, but to be honest, if he had bet the river, I was probably just going to fold anyway, so he really didn't lose any value by checking.
That's a wrap here at the bike. Jesse, do you want to tell everyone how you did?
I won 13.5 grand. It went well. I don't think I played my best, but I certainly ran my best.
You know, it's just nice to get out of Vegas sometimes. Like, I play the same place almost every day. I play at the Win a lot, and it's just nice to mix things up. Get out of town, and now we go back tomorrow. Get to say hi to the little puppies.
Yup.
And feel refreshed. That's all she wrote for LA. Highly recommend coming here if you want some spicy cash game action. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time. Big old mouthful of food. That was a perfect timing. This is what it's like before the lights come on and the people get here. Our gracious host just gives us a bunch of food. Hardly anybody is here yet.
He runs out to play some limit hold'em, baby.
Yeah, let me hold them.